Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Top 10 Weird Cards 2025.
Chapter 1.
In this video, I'm gonna talk about the top 10 weird cards of 2025 in Yu-Gi-Oh! With that being said, let's get on with the rest of the video.
Chapter 2.
At number 10, we have D.D Post. So let's read this continuous trap and understand why it's weird. Monsters you control gain 300 attack for each card type, monster, spell, or trap, among your banished cards. Once per turn, during the main phase, you can banish one card from your hand or graveyard. Then you can shuffle one of your banished cards into the deck. If this card is banished, you can place it face up on your field. You can only use each effect of D.D Post once per turn. So when we look at this continuous trap D.D Post, you think, is this meant for Malice? No, because Malice doesn't need a card like this. Is this meant for Metaphys? No. It's a card where it doesn't make any sense, hence why it's weird. It doesn't help any so-called decks it's meant to help, and when you think it's you could use it for Thunder Dragons, not really. There's very few, or there is actually, archetypes that do want their spells to be banished or whatever. But its effect, its resolution, and how it resolves doesn't make any sense. And hence why it is so weird. While it's low on the list because there could be some kind of utility, whether that utility could be useful is another thing altogether, making it extremely weird.
You are absolutely right.
And a mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which really, with the way it's looking, doesn't make any sense. D.D Post seems to be a card that is sort of enhancing the effect of banishment. But we do not have cards or decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! That want all of their cards banished, because D.D Post takes the presumption that you'd like your spells and traps in your hand banished as well. That every card in an archetype, an example archetype, will want everything banished, including their spells and traps. Only Malice fulfills that requirement. Even Malice only is just their monsters, and maybe one of their spells, not exactly every card in the archetype. And that's about it. Let's move on to the next one.
Chapter 3.
And at number 9 is Shadow Severing Strike, a continuous spell. Let's read this effect. If a card is banished from your hand or field to activate a monster effect, except during the damage step, you can apply one of the following effects, based on one of the card types banished. Monster negates the effects of one face-up spell or trap on the field until the end of this turn. Spell, draw 2 cards. Trap, banish one monster on the field. If this card is banished to activate a monster effect, you can add one of your banished cards to your hand. You can only use each effect of Shadow Severing Strike once per turn. Indeed, this has the same problem as the D.D Post we mentioned earlier. What deck are you using it in? And another thing is, the effects of Shadow Severing Strike are weird, as we have other effects in the game that do what this card does, but are better. If you want, to effectively destroy back row, we have Typhoon or Imperm or other sorts of cards that can do so. All the effects on Shadow Severing Strike are really quite weird, as we've seen these effects on other cards, and they are much more prevalent and useful in other cards than they are in this card. While in theory, putting all these 3 effects on one card would be useful, the way it is implemented, the way these effects are illustrated on how they would activate, creates this weird scenario. Again, Shadow Severing Strike feels like a card that's just weird for the sake of being weird. These mechanics make no sense, and we don't have any way to utilize the banish mechanic. Again, heralding the fact that we are assuming that we're going to have an archetype that wants everything banished with the same core principles and same core ideas that I had an issue with D.D Post. rendering this card completely utterly useless. As before, there is some kind of use for this card, but with the way it is, and since there's no foundation for this card or D.D Post to be useful, then it is rendered weird and just, yeah, that's about it. Let's move on.
Chapter 4.
And here we have it. At number 8 is NT 8000 SIRIUS, a level 8 monster with the following effect. This linked card cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects of NT 8000 SIRIUS once per turn. During the turn a link monster's effect is activated, quick effect, you can target one face-up card you control and one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy both. If this card is sent to the graveyard except from the field and you control a Dark Link monster, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Now, when we look at this card, we see some potential. We see some ways that this card can be utilized or used for various means with Link summoning. And in fact, you could think that you could use it in Dragon Link, but Dragon Link is not going to use this abomination of a card. And herein lies the problem. This is an effect that has all the hallmarks of a good effect. But when we look at it and inspect the effects in more detail and the environment of Yu-Gi in more detail, this effect just comes off as weird because there's no way to special summon this card easily.
Facts.
While true, you can send it to the graveyard with various cards or discarding it from your deck or whatever, etc. But again, the effect that it has is also weird as it just does a destruction effect. While it's true, this destruction effect, it targets, so there's that as well. There's a lot of things, a lot of hindrances to NT 8000 SIRIUS that renders this effect not just weird, but absolutely pointless. And again, this seems to be for an archetype that is yet to exist, or for an archetype that potentially could be useful and could benefit from a card like this. Now, this is a card that is weird for all various amounts of reasons, and it's part of the reason why it's at number 8. While there is some kind of utility for this card, but it's not there yet. Machines don't want this, Link decks don't want this either. It's just in this weird limbo space where it has a sort of useful effect, but it has no home. So we'll see in the future whether this card will find a home in an archetype or something, but for now, it is just some pack filler, and pack filler is the sort of thing that is weird in Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially when it comes to effects, and you wouldn't think that of this card. Anyway, let's move on.
Chapter 5.
And at number 7, we have Shipping Error, a normal trap with the following effect. When a card or effect is activated, it includes an effect that adds a card from the deck to the hand. The activated effect becomes the opponent takes one card from their deck for you to add to your hand. And you must keep that card revealed during the end phase of this turn, shuffle it in the deck, and if you do, draw one card. Now, when we look at Shipping Error, we see loads of potential, and we start to dream the endless potential, the endless ways we can use this card. But then our hopes and dreams are dashed when we realized the effect of Shipping Error is practically just a glorified hand trap, and we have other hand traps in the game that can do what Shipping Error does and does it better. And from that point, it becomes completely redundant. And there's another thing as well about Shipping Error that doesn't make any sense. As we analyze its effects a bit more, it has conflicting text and conflicting ideas. With conflicting implementation, does this mean that we put a copy of this into the opponent's deck? Again, there's a lot of things here that warrant a lot of gameplay mechanics or gameplay loops that are not fully studied in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. And the fact that we're going to be putting a card in our opponent's deck from our deck is something that can be subject to cheating, something can be subject to all manners of things which are not necessarily healthy. This is a way for cards to get lost in translation, literally lost in someone else's deck, and there's a lot of controversies, conspiracies, and a lot of things that can go wrong if this card is to be implemented in an actual game. There's too many politics and too much things involved that would render this card not just useless, but a ticking time bomb, especially if anyone wants to play this card. How can you be sure that this card has resolved? Will your opponent actually let this card resolve? And even if it has resolved, would they be comfortable in you playing one card of it of you putting a card from your deck into your opponent's deck? And when the game is completed, are you sure you're going to get your card back? There's a lot of questions here, a lot of trust here. And while, yes, we can say that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a children's card game, and you shouldn't be doing things like that, but this card raises too many questions and opens Pandora's box to a set of rules or set of gameplay mechanics that we really don't want to indulge or create in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment, and I don't think ever. And so for that reason, it's at number 7. Okay, let's move on.
Chapter 6.
At number 6 comes 7-star / Army Annihilator Hagoon. A quick play spell. And let's read that effect to determine how weird this card really is. Target one face-up monster you control. Equip it with one level 7 monster with the same type but a different name from your hand or deck as an equipped spell. That gives it 700 attack, but return that equipped spell to your hand during the end phase. When your opponent's level / rank 8 higher monster is destroyed by battle while this card is in the graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. You can only activate one 7-star / Army Annihilator Hagoon per turn. Now, we look at this card, and we're like, and I'm sorry to say it, but this card is weird. Now, you might think to yourself, but I've seen an effect like this before, Union Carrier, right? When we equipped any monster from our deck, as a spell and trap zone. I've seen this effect before with Snake Eyes and putting things as spells and traps, right? But this is completely different. This is a selection with Snake Eyes and with these other effects that we talked about. You were free as a player, as they were. Snake Eyes is linked to the archetype, especially with the fusion summon of Doom Dragon, etc. There's lots of room to grow and loads of experimentation that can be done with these equip sort of things. But with the 7-star slash, this experimentation is severely hindered. First of all, you can only target a level 7 monster with the same type, which means it's extremely restrictive. Another thing, you're equipping a level 7 monster from your deck onto the field. Now, if you're already doing something like this, then why not just have search and equip card instead? In fact, this is a sort of effect that why not just have an effect why not just say search and equip spell? Why are you making a monster an equip spell? In fact, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We don't even have a searcher for equip spells in the game. This would definitely be a way of introducing that. The fact that I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For all this time and we've never had a searcher for equip spells is absolutely criminal and is just insane. Hence why this card is severely weird. I think it's gonna be a word I'm gonna be saying very often in this video. But yeah, 7-star / Army Annihilator Hagoon is weird. It doesn't serve any purpose for helping equips in any way. It doesn't elevate equipping in any way, as it doesn't bring anything new to the table, as Snake Eyes and other sorts of various effects that equip have improved that aspect of equipping. So why does this card exist, and what is it there for? Maybe it's for fun, who knows? But yeah, and we leave it at that.
Chapter 7.
And at number 5, we have Spring, this field spell. Now, we look at this field spell, and we see loads of potential. And in fact, when this was first read out to the community, we thought that, hey, this card has a lot of potential, has a lot of things that it can do. But all of a sudden, we just felt that this card was weird. Well, let's read this effect and understand why this field spell is so weird. Once per turn, you can choose any number of your unused main monster zones, and if you do, place that number of season counters on this card. Also, those zones cannot be used while this card is on the field. Monsters you control gain 400 attack for each season counter on this card. Once per turn, during your opponent's end phase, you can take one field spell from your deck and place one season counter on it, and place it face up on your field. But neither player can activate its effects this turn. And if you do, place all season counters on this card on that card. So we look at this, and it's supposed to represent spring, and I'm sure there'll be other field spells that will do something similar. So we expect other field spells summarizing the seasons. But we look at this, and what is this field spell for? What does it do? And we just lock ourselves out, right? What is it for? What are we doing? Why are we locking ourselves out? Again, this field spell is so-called weird as we do not have a clear indicator of what the play style is. There is potential here, potentially, but without knowing and without having other field spells or other effects similar to this, as it needs another field spell that Konami is yet to release, or hopefully will release. And in the current sets, I don't think we've had anything announced in Doom Dimension showcasing a card like this or a card similar to this. So yeah, currently spring is just weird for the sake of being weird. But make no mistake, it could change from having potential with another field spell similar to it. That is something we'll have to wait and see in the future.
Chapter 8.
At number 4, we have Return of the Duelist, a normal spell. Fun fact, Return of the Duelist is also the name of a booster set that came out in midway of Yu-Gi-Oh's life cycle. Now, with that being said, let's read this effect. If an XYZ monster is on the field in either graveyard, add one equip spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only activate on Return of the Duelist per turn. Okay, here's something I want to say. Why does this require you to have an XYZ monster, or there has to be an XYZ monster in either player's graveyard? Why can't we just have a simple searcher for an equip spell, for crying out loud, right? That's why this card is weird. Now, that's why I call it weird. I mean, I get it. It's meant to help the Doom Patron archetype, which uses an XYZ monster, but we've had similar searchers in the past. And the fact that this card has a restriction on it, while that's to be expected, the thing to me that makes it weird is that you have to go through hoops and hurdles to just search an equip spell, right? That to me is weird. Equip spells in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have been heavily undersupported and are barely things that can do anything. I mean, you have Gravity Blast. I mean, the only good equip spell are what? Moon Mirror Shield and Gravity Blaster? To name two. The majority of field spells are just weird and have not basically kept up with as long as Yu-Gi-Oh! Has progressed into power scaling. Equip spells, in fact, have just been rendered useless in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So, to me, it wouldn't really seem to be a problem, right? If we, let's say, give a buff to equip spells and they're searching. Besides, equip spells will be competing for space with normal spells, and which are inherently stronger, right? So why not just give equip spells a chance? But anyways, that's just me though. I get future-proofing, I get it. But equip spells, I don't think are going to be something that's going to be prevalent for Yu-Gi-Oh's a life cycle. While yes, Doom Patron does use equip spells, and they are thinking, but again, do we see Doom Patron doing anything in the OCG? Absolutely not. Is he going to do something in the TCG? Absolutely not. A deck focused on just equip spells is just not going to do anything. I don't see doing anything. I don't see decks um with equip spells doing anything. While yes, you can say Mikanko is a thing, but Mikanko, while it does use equip spells, right? The difference is that Mikanko. Actually, wait, no, I think Mikanko is actually a successful equip spell deck. To be honest, yeah, I think it is. Maybe I was a bit too harsh now. Maybe they put the restriction because of Mikanko, but even still, I don't think while Mikanko has broken tradition and has become successful, but I don't think like equip spell decks rendering me except from Mikanko are going to be successful in Yu-Gi-Oh's future. Maybe I'll hold my tongue to that, and Doom Patron maybe might surpass my expectations, but I doubt that. And that's it. Let's move on.
Chapter 9.
In third place for Weird Card is Bomber Place. Let's read that effect. It's a spellcaster with the following effect. Once per chain, you can pay 600 life points and activate one of these effects. If you control 6 monsters with different levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, choose one face-up monster your opponent controls with a level and destroy all monsters your opponent controls with the same level, rank, link rating as that monster. Choose one face-up monster your opponent controls with a level and destroy all of your opponent's monsters in the same column with the same level, rank, or link rating as that monster. Now, I look at Bomber Place and I'm like, this. At first, you think this card has loads of potential. And also, let's bear in mind that one of the most subvertive cards was Infinite Impermanence at the time, that not only introduced the column mechanic to Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole, and was used and being used competitively to this very day. Mech Knights as well introduced the color mechanic once again. So the aspect of the color mechanic is not that it can fail, but it has succeeded in several occasions. I mean, some versions of the color mechanic haven't succeeded, but it's not to say for a lack of trying. And so when you look at this card, initially you think that this is a good effect, right? But we start to have a lot of problems. First of all, how do we special summon this card? This card is a level 6, might I add, and has no way to bring itself out on the field. Already, that's a severe problem. Another thing is, you have to have a lot of monsters with different levels on your field. By the time you have that many form of monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh, if your monster zones are full of 5 monsters, you're not going to be using Bomber Place. By that point in time, you've already won the game. So, yeah, Bomber Place just feels weird, as using your monster zones for that many monsters and doing nothing with it feels like a wasted potential. And no monster should be using that many zones on your monster zones for just a measly pop effect. So yeah, it's weird, it doesn't warrant the cost, and it's just completely and utterly pointless. Terrible. Bomber Place really is a bomb in terms of utility, flexibility, and just likability. Well, let's carry on.
Chapter 10.
And in second place, the second weird card is the trap card called the Toil of the Normal. So, first of all, we've been seeing all throughout this year. Right, and last year, normals have been getting some great support with the Primite cards, and Primite has been further supported this year. So when we're hearing the further support of the normal monsters, we're like, yo, this is gonna be good, this is gonna be great. But let's read Toil of the Normal and then understand why this card is weird and why it's at second place. Apply these effects in sequence based on the number of normal monsters with different names in your graveyard. Skip over any that do not apply. If you have 1 plus, this turn normal monsters you control gain 800 attack. 2 plus, negate the effects of one effect monster on the field until the end of this turn. 3 plus, this turn normal monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. 4 plus, shuffle one effect monster on the field into the deck. 5 plus, add one tool of the normal from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one toil of the normal per turn. Toil of the normal. So we look at this effect and we're like, well, how is this helping normals in any way? Well, I guess it does give you the ability to negate, but you have to have 2 or more normals in your graveyard, right? And that sounds great, but again, we're having a problem here. Toil of the Normal feels weird as the Primite cards that were released last year and further increased this year does more for supporting normals than Toil of the Normal does. It really doesn't do anything and feels practically weird, as we have a negate effect, but Primite does that better. It feels like we're comparing this to a normal negate package that does much more. The Primite package for normal monsters is absolutely great. You get, you get Drill Beam and which load can search, and Primite Scream, which is a continuous trap that can negate spells or traps, and you have a quick play that can negate face-up effects. Fantastic card. Fantastic effect. Primites do much more. Anyways, when we look at Toil of the Normal, it really doesn't do anything to help normals as a whole. It feels like redundant space, and maybe if Primite did not exist, then Toil of the Normal, there could be an argument for using Toil of the Normal. But because Primite exists as an archetype and as an engine for normal monsters, then Toil of the Normal is just weird, has missed potential, and maybe will have potential in the future. Hence why it's at second place. While it is a weird card, there's loads of potential for it, and we can definitely see an avenue where this card can be used. And let's hit on number 1 spot.
Chapter 11.
And at number 1, the most weird card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Dogurad the Stonetrooper, a Link 3 rock monster. Let's read that effect. If this card is special summoned, you can target one rock monster in your graveyard. This card gains attack equal to that monster's attack. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can target one other monster on the field with attack less than or equal to this card. This card loses attack equal to that monster's attack. And if it does destroy that monster, you can only use each effect of Dogurad, the Stonetrooper, once per turn. So in theory, how you're meant to use this card is if you get Nibiru, you basically meant to play this card. But herein lies the problem. If we are waiting for our opponent to activate a certain card, and if Nibiru is popular in the format, why are we playing a card to counter it? And another thing as well, a Link 3 monster? That is a lot of investment here. That is a lot of investment, a lot to make a mediocre monster. For what? Just a pop? There's a lot of things here that just go wrong. This card feels weird as it doesn't address the problem of Nibiru. Not only does it not address the problem of Nibiru, if there was a problem to begin with, but again, it just feels weird as it's just there and it doesn't do anything. While you think it would help against Nibiru, it does not. While you think it would help against in a rock deck, it does not. It feels automatically so weird as this is an effect that tries to please everyone but ends up pleasing no one. And it's for that reason that it's at first place as the most weird card in Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2025. Yes, A card with effects that tries to please everyone, but in the end, pleases no one, is why it's at first place. And I think that's all I've got to say.
Final chapter.
And here we are at the overall conclusion. So what do I want to say? What I want to say is that this is the list I have of the top 10 weird cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the reason that they're there is that these cards are weird for, as I've said, a variety of reasons. They're weird because these are cards that have been created by Konami, and they look like they have potential, but some of them, are they supposed to have potential for banishing? What are they supposed to do? What was the thought process? We don't know. Some of them you can see what the thought process was, but again, they failed to establish that hype. Unlike the missed potential, where like you can clearly see there was potential here, but it was just missed. There was the wrong thinking. Some of these cards are just so-called weird, as they don't feel to have any potential at all. And I think that's all I've got to say in this video. Tune in next time as I talk about more things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.